Welcome back, listeners. Natalie and Bill here, and we are very excited to welcome you back to episode 13 of The Power of You. Good afternoon, Bill. How are we today?
We're great. Great to see you.
Yes, great to see you too. So glad to be back for our next episode. And today, what we want to talk about is something that we kind of touched upon actually in our earlier Q&A that we did separately, but also something that kind of came through to me over the weekend. And it's this concept of being in the right place and at the right time. We spoke a little bit today about environments, and we spoke last time on the podcast about the importance of timing. So I wanted to almost bridge those two concepts together about the place and the timing and how they mesh together to create something quite beautiful. So I guess maybe to start today, what is your take on this concept of being in the right place and at the right time and the magic that can bring?
Well, once we have gone inside ourselves and decided what our desired end state is going to be, what work we want to do in our life, what work would be just like play, our passion work. And once we've played with paper and pencil or computer or something to make a plan, like a business would, like a company would, like a brand manager would, we are our own brand. We have to plan the brand's campaign. How will we launch the brand in the marketplace? How will we get to doing the work that we want to do? Well, we're going to have to go out and see people. We're going to have to get some kind of a relationship, a work environment where we'll be able to fit in and work with others and proceed with our passion work. Even if our work as a writer is work that we think we're going to be doing alone, we're going to need to work with other people. We'll need an editor. We'll need a literary agent. We'll need a publisher. We may need to learn how, if we want to be a script writer, we're going to have to learn how to use Final Draft, because the script has to be in the Final Draft format or they won't even look past the first half page. So we're going to have to go out there and put ourselves in front of the firing squad of life and expose ourselves to making mistakes, doing things great, feeling comfortable, feeling uncomfortable, stretching ourselves, taking risks, wise risks, not unnecessary risks, not impulsive risks. We want to pre-dream where we're going, and then we want to go out and live the dream. And to do that, we're going to have to go places, and we're going to have to show up on time. Early is even better, because getting into a big security guarded building, if you have a 3 o'clock appointment, you should get there like 2:30 to 2:45 to make sure that you're going to get to the meeting on time. There's a lot of showbiz sayings. One of the showbiz sayings is 99% of it is showing up. So we got to show up. We have to go out and show up in the right place at the right time. And we kind of have to go in neutral, which means if you go in and you're all hyped up and excited and overly anxious and scared and attached to the outcome, it's not going to be as good as if you go in neutral. Going in neutral means that you've crammed for the exam of the interview or whatever it is. You've overtrained yourself. You've spent like 3 days occasionally going through in your mind what the other party could say, what you're going to say in response, and then correcting yourself. No, that wouldn't be the good thing to say, blah, blah, blah. So you've gone through all of that, and now you can put it all aside and start from scratch. Go in with a clean sheet of paper and without being attached, and treat it as a reconnaissance. Life is a reconnaissance. You're always on a recon to learn how to do it better the next time after. You're not trying to do it. You can't be attached to doing it the right time in the current time you're in. In the current time space, you're a recon for the next time space. And that way, you're sure to not be overly attached, and you're sure to be more blasé and in your own natural self, in your body, down to earth, feet on the floor, aware of your breath, aware of the situation, aware of your connection and hunches and feelings and what the other person's feeling, and enjoying the moment, enjoying the interaction. So, I mean, I said a lot of words, but basically it's stretching yourself by getting out there and mixing with people, the right people, knowing when they're the right people, sensing they're people who are in favor of working with you, appreciate who you are, what you bring to the party, and are going to treat you respectfully and collaboratively and help you get along.
Yeah. So I love what you said about it, like it's all about showing up, right? It's about showing up, and that's something I think about a lot. It's about putting in the reps. It's never going to be perfect, and it's never going to be done. The work is never done, but it's about continuing to show up every single day, and whatever that means to you in your life. It could be in raising a family, it could be in your work, it could be in your friendships or your relationship, whatever showing up means to you. And I think what you've shared there is around when you show up in whatever facet of life it is, kind of go with this neutral mindset. And I know for me, sometimes I can get really hyped up and excited about certain things, but what you've shared about neutrality, I think having a more grounded presence is really, really important in terms of your messages and your delivery. So whatever facet of life you're in, if you have a more grounded presence, it doesn't mean you can't be excited and energetic, but it helps in terms of the clarity of what you're trying to put across. And I think what you've shared there is around the frame. Well, this might be the first time, but it won't be the last, and that life is a continuous evolution. So, okay, whether it's in your friendship and you're going to have a really difficult conversation for the first time, yes, that might feel nerve-wracking, and you might be scared or a bit overwhelmed by it, and you probably won't do it right the first time. But know that this will not be your last, and that can go across any aspect of your life, really. So this concept that even if it's the first time, it won't be the last. So that with that knowing, it should take away some of this pressure that I often think we pile on ourselves, that this needs to be perfect. I'm going to get this one shot and this is going to be perfect. I think when you take that retrospective and reflective approach, it'll always feel like your first time because you'll always know something new, right?
Right. It's always.
Yeah. So I guess with that, knowing that it'll always be new, and it might be your first time, but it won't be your last, but it will always be different. So this idea of being in the right place in the right time, are we always in the right place at the right time? Because at that point in time, even if it's the first time you're doing something, this is the lesson that you need to learn. So are we always in the right place in the right time, or do you believe we can be in the wrong place?
Well, we'll sense it if we're in the wrong place. We'll want to run screaming from the room, throwing a hand grenade behind us, blow all those bad people up. There are situations where one finds oneself, I don't want to be with these people. These aren't my people. This is not where I belong. And, it's a good signal. It may be a clanging klaxon horn in your mind that's making too much of it. You might be able to slip away, in a non-dramatic fashion and not burn any bridges, so that you don't, create enemies where you keep them as acquaintances is much better than creating enemies. But respect your own hunches about, are these the right friends for me to have, or the right influences? Am I in the right work? And so on. The other thing about this is the universe is constantly gifting us with opportunities, some of which seem to be our own sudden ideas pop into our head, and may in fact be our own ideas popping into our head, but that's part of the universe too. And the universe may be trying to get us to go certain places, and we may feel strongly like not going. Particularly when I was younger, I felt that a lot. I didn't want to go to anything. I wanted to stay home because I was able to think at home, and I could think clearly, and that made me feel better. And I knew I was learning things about myself, and that was useful. And I didn't want to break into that by doing something that I had never done before with people I didn't necessarily know. And I think I was a bit reclusive, and too much so. But then in my 20s, I kind of somehow broke out of that. I was with people I enjoyed being with and loved talking shop with. And it was a great time in my life to mix and experience a lot of different tonalities and things. And once I got out of my shell, it was great to be out of my shell. And I never wanted to go back into my shell. And still, love being alone and meditating and contemplating. And I get my best ideas that way. Sometimes I get great ideas and certainly great inspirations from other people and how they think and what they're doing and what they're thinking and other people's ideas and experiences. There's so much to learn from other people. And there's so much fun.
Yeah. And it's interesting, right? Because even if you're looking back now, you could say, oh, it was wrong for me to be, introspective, and wrong to be, you're wrong to spend all this time alone. But this is where I guess I come up against it, is like, but if you hadn't done that, would you have learned, right? And obviously I believe there's environments that are not good for you, 100%. Like, I know I've had that in my career at certain points in time where it's, very toxic and is not good for your nervous system. The difference is now I would be able to tell the difference between that versus what I just accepted as normal. And I guess you could say I was in the wrong place at the wrong time, but actually, had I not been there, would I have learned that lesson? So it's an interesting concept for me. Like, are we really ever in the wrong place as long as we've learned from it?
And I think that's the biggest message, is that looked at from God's perspective, everything is perfect. And you have to look at it from God's perspective to see the perfection of it. Like even wars and suffering and all of that is a learning experience to prevent worse suffering in the future. But, that isn't the normal human perspective. The normal human perspective is to say, there couldn't be a God because God wouldn't be letting us suffer like this. But the only way God could have prevented our suffering would be not giving us free will. If we didn't have free will, we would never make any mistakes. We'd be like the angels. They're a bit boring, don't you think?
And that's it. We do have free will and we can make our own choices and decisions. But if we view the lens that everything is a learning experience, or see everything as a learning experience, I think that's the powerful mindset shift, really, because then even if you do feel like you're learning something at the wrong time in your life, or you're in the wrong environment, if you shift your mindset from a case of like helplessness and hopelessness, essentially, to, okay, what is this trying to teach me? If we look at the world through that lens, whether you want to believe in spirituality, God, whatever it is, if you just change the reframe to be like, what is this trying to teach me? What am I meant to learn here? If you think of it as a video game, it's like, what am I meant to learn? And I think that is the shift that really helps, even when you might feel that you're in the wrong place, wrong time, or you feel unlucky or a bit, why does this always happen to me? Like this kind of victim mindset. If you shift your mindset into a place of learning, the quicker you will accelerate out of that level of the game, or out of that kind of what you might feel is a negative or toxic environment.
I think there's two. Yeah, I think that's the highest message, the one from which all power flows. And you could approach it without any degree of spirituality, just by your degree of determination. And the Greek Stoic philosophers took that approach, that just by having will and determination and personal strength, they could overcome anything. And if they were in a bad situation, they could try to flip it around to, what does this teach me about what to do better next time? And they didn't have to rely necessarily on any view of the world that was allowing for there to be a benevolent parent spirit. But for most human beings, I mean, Stoicism doesn't really catch on to the whole population that easily. Most of the human population don't exhibit the ability to take that frame of mind and act on it. So, Greek culture broke into the Athenian culture and the Spartan culture. The Spartan culture embodied Stoicism, but most of the island chain was not there at all. They were much more into hedonism and Epicureanism and so on, enjoying life. But they had a mythos of spirituality, their own panoply of gods, to help them believe in a better life and in an ideal other world, a higher world that we were a reflection of, the way Socrates and Plato looked at it. It would help, and it has helped in the past, in the history. The religions did accomplish a lot to get people to open their minds to the possibility of accepting guidance from unseen forces. And the ability to take that concept of unseen forces that are trying to give us clues is very useful in our lives. It's a very powerful thing to deny. It's terrible to be denied that because of an active, strong disbelief in God. So in my writings, I just try to get people to open their mind to the fact that science has not said God is impossible. In fact, the more I study physics, quantum physics in particular, the more I realize that the great quantum physicists all believed that consciousness came before matter. Once you open the door to consciousness being something that could have preceded matter, well, if consciousness could have preceded matter, then the idea of God isn't ridiculous or absurd or unscientific. It's quite possible. So just opening oneself to that possibility opens oneself to maybe, Noia, the idea that there's somebody out there is trying to help us. Not somebody out there is trying to get us, but somebody's trying to help us. We tend to then be more receptive to the possibility that idea that just popped into our mind maybe we should take it seriously and try it out.
Yeah, and I'd love to go into this concept a little bit more about trusting in the unseen, right? Because I know for me, having that belief, right, that everything will work out, however, and unfold exactly as it's meant to, gives me such a great degree of freedom, actually, in how I move forward every single day, because there is this deep trust in the unseen, or faith, whatever you want to call it, that it will all evolve and unfold as it's meant to. So, and I think that's a really, because if somebody had asked me how did I get to that point about trusting in this the unseen, I don't know that I'd be able to answer that question succinctly, right, about trusting in the unseen. So I think it's important that we dig into that a little bit more in terms of what does trusting in the unseen comprise of, and how can people start to build that trust if it is not there already?
I think one thing, a good first step would be to release oneself from false certainty. I think that we're living at a time when we've taken strong fixed positions that we're immobilized by. We're frozen into either this ideology or that ideology. And where it came from, unfortunately, was people we loved had that ideology. So the transfer was easy. We loved them. They believed this. I believe that. And, you know, love is a good thing. But the slavish, and you could even lean in a given direction, whatever direction you're leaning in. Oh, I'm a conservative, or I'm a progressive, or I'm a this, or I'm a that. Keep leaning wherever you feel natural. But the certainty is wrong. Give up on the certainty. Look at what, when we all work together, all of our minds working together, we've created civilization. And in civilization, we've created certain ethics and laws and, you know, social agreements. And when we say certainty about something, when we all agree on certainty, there are two cases where we do that. We do it in science and we do it in jurisprudence. Like in the law, you have to prove things beyond the shadow of a doubt. And in science, you have to test the null hypothesis. You have to try to disprove the theory that you came up with in love. You have to use experiments that objectively determine that the theory is right or wrong. And you have to accept it. If it's coming out wrong, you can't fake the results and try to fool other people. So we only, as a society, put a stamp of certainty on things under extremely difficult conditions, like rare, difficult conditions. 1% of the time, we can ascribe certainty. The other 99% of the time, when we feel certain about stuff, it's all BS. We've been brainwashed into it. We've brainwashed ourselves into it. It's like a state of hypnosis. We're hypnotized into this false certainty. We have to get away from that trick. It's a bad trick we played on ourselves. Once we get away from false certainty, then we can admit, yeah, I don't know if there's a God or not. What if there is a God? And I keep denying it until the moment of death. And then I'm facing God, and God is tapping his foot or her foot and saying, you didn't believe, huh? Let me just play you something. This is how way your life would have gone if you hadn't had that false certainty. And then you quickly, within a second, see the life going by, and it's fantastic. So much better than the life you put yourself through because you had that false certainty.
And I think that concept of certainty we can use that across all facets of life as well, because I think we can we feel that it's a certainty, or we feel that it's truth to us because of our experiences, because of our upbringing, because of who we've surrounded ourselves with, because of where we were born. Like, our certainty and somebody else's certainty will look often can look completely different. And I think this is where it's important to understand or step back a little bit, because our certainty is based on so many factors, of which, I just mentioned. And for me, being able to step back, what does that mean? Like, that looks like, going to different countries, seeing how people do things in different cultures, in different environments. That is experiencing a range of different kind of workplaces or roles, or trying on different hats, right? That can be surrounding yourself with people that perhaps you might want to label as weird or strange, right? Like, but do you really know if you've never really gotten that perspective? So I think what we all need to do is, it's less about being certain and more about being curious, because we can only be certain or believe it's truth based on the knowledge and the experiences that we've acquired to date. So I think, for me, everything is a data point. So I don't think we'll ever be certain, but what we can do is collect more data, or collect more perspectives or angles and views in which we can view a certain situation. And again, that's a bit like the scientist, as you said. They've got a theory, and they speak to more people, do more experiments to prove or disprove. And I think that's the same in any aspect of life, right? Whatever you believe, it's like you're just coming from one angle. So can you look at it from different perspectives? And in order to do that, you may need to change your environment, you may need to change your country, you may need to change the people that you're around in order to get that wider view and wider lens. Because I think just like readiness is an illusion, I think certainty is somewhat of an illusion too.
Exactly.
And when we think of like illusions, I guess going into that even further, when you look at the world through, like, as if this is an illusion, right, rather than certainty, it enables us to be much more free and creative, really, because if nothing is certain and everything is an illusion, then we are the person that is viewing this. So we are actually the coders and the creators that are seeing this like version and reality and illusion that's in front of us. So we've actually created it, not the outside world.
Quantum physics does support that to a degree. I think I may have mentioned in previous conversations that Archibald Wheeler, a great physicist, came up with this idea of the anthropic principle, participatory anthropic principle, that the universe pre-exists. He believed that the universe pre-exists consciousness, but until consciousness comes along, the universe that exists consists of probability waves with no certainty. Things aren't objects. They haven't become solidified. The tree could fall this way, it could fall that way, it could not fall. But then when consciousness is observing something, it freezes it into place. It causes the waveform to collapse. And that's the reality that we perceive has been partially created by consciousness and partially by the quantum foam that existed in what we were observing. Hawking, who passed away a couple of years ago, was our greatest living scientist, physicist, theoretician. And in his final book, he included Wheeler's anthropic principle. Einstein also believed that the universe wasn't a random accident made of only matter. And then I mentioned before, the people who invented quantum physics, Planck and Niels Bohr, Heisenberg, Schrodinger, von Neumann, all those people believed that consciousness came first. So if consciousness came first, the events that the Jewish, Christian, and Islamic religions and the ancient writings in the Hindu religion and in Taoism could all be true, not just myths. Those people could have existed, those events, those miracles could have happened. All of that is possible if consciousness came first. And that's the basis for my sci-fi series, The Agents of Cosmic Intelligence, where I fictionalize what could have been the explanation for everything we've experienced in history so far, if consciousness could have come first.
Yeah, and I guess to ground that back down into like people's everyday realities and in their everyday lives and challenges that they may be facing, I guess whether you want to go into the depths of consciousness and how the world was created, or whether you want to lean in with curiosity rather than certainty, I think that will take you so much further in life, like just in terms of that frame. Because if you can look at it as in like you're collecting more data, it's to disprove or prove what you already believe. Because essentially what we do is we have a thought and we look for evidence to support that thought or whatever movie is in our mind, essentially. So what we're doing subconsciously is looking for data or experiences to validate what we already believe. So I think, and I mean, I'm guilty of this too, right? It's about litmus testing that. Like, I know what I believe, but actually, am I just looking now for the evidence that supports what I already believe? Or am I collecting more data to prove or disprove? And I think this is the thing that we all do. It's like we want to prove what we already believe to be true. And so we might surround ourselves with people that believe the same things, or we might talk to people, surround ourselves with people that believe the same things, or act the same way as we do. But the problem with that is that without the diversity of thought, it's very hard to understand or see all angles. And I guess when we ground that into everyday life, that leads into teams, right? Like, are you surrounding yourself just with people that think the same way and act the same way and do the things the same way as you do? Are you, your friendships, is everybody the same as you, or like thinks on the same wavelength? And while having commonalities is great, actually you're going to grow more when there's that kind of healthy discussion and somewhat friction, right? Because you are getting a difference in opinion and a different viewpoint, and that's actually when we learn more.
There is such diversity in the universe. There's so many wonderful things to experience in the universe. If we proceed on this basis of confirmation bias, and we only watch the news channel that tells you what you already believe over and over and over again, we become these programmed robots that are unable to grow or consider new ideas, and are missing out on at least half of what life has to offer. And it divides people who previously felt that they were all one wonderful thing together, like the United States of America, for example. They had that in common. Now it's back like, no, there's this America and there's that America. So now we've shrunken the family into half the family. It would be much better to be curious and open and tolerant of other viewpoints, and willingness to consider other viewpoints and to integrate multiple viewpoints into one picture. I mean, I remember in my early work days, at one point I pictured plumbing where there was a pipe coming from here and there were these pipes coming from here. And so they formed kind of like a Y, an upside down Y. And I looked at myself as being at the juncture of the three pipes, and that I was going to be an integrator. I was going to take ideas that seemed not to be in agreement with each other and see a way where you could put them into the same picture together. That I was going to be an integrative function. That came to me, in my first couple of years working in the media business. And so I think it's an interesting heuristic to try to integrate what seem to be clashing ideas, to try to see how could they both be right? How could you have a win-win? Because there usually is an answer. That is, yes, you can. You can take this, like somebody wants to buy media as cheaply as possible, and somebody else wants to buy it more effectively. And, they're not thinking about the cheapness. Well, you can come up with a concept of cost per new customer. Oh, okay, then we get both at the same time. Not so difficult.
Yeah, and I think that's that richness in perspectives. Actually, what if you can all be right? Right? What if everybody is right?
Yeah.
And with that, if we assume everybody's right, right, then what is the combination or the middle ground of all these ideas? I know for me, looking at business, I'm very vision focused, very intuitive, and then my partner, he's very grounded, very financially savvy, good with numbers. And it's not that one is right and the other is wrong. It's a combination. And I think when we can put that together, that is when there's a superpower there, right? By surrounding yourself with people that have different skill sets, different perspectives, different viewpoints, and collecting more data points or more perspectives to view the same problem. Because when we come together, that is when we can really solve problems, right? Because we're never going to solve a problem in isolation. We need that diversity of thought in order to get there.
And, we were talking before about dealing with external environmental negativity. This kind of ties in, because if we take that negative input and we look at it from two perspectives, one is, I'm not going to let that bring me down. But the other perspective that I didn't mention before, which is equally important, is let me integrate that. Let me strip off the negative tone of it and just take it as a bit of advice. It's another data point to integrate into my pitch, my story, my new invention, whatever it might be. So, okay, there's a germ of truth there. Let's get that germ of truth and use it. Let's be grateful for it. Let's thank the person, even though they were negative. Just filter out the negative part and use the good part, the useful part.
Mm-hmm. You can take something from everything. So, yeah. And it can even be, if it's negative, you can take it as something you don't want to do, or you can take it as something that you don't want to learn. So if we have this view that actually we can take something from every experience, then I guess that circles us back round to being in the right place at the right time. And that as a concept, if we can take something from every experience, whether it's good or bad, are we ever really in the right place, the wrong place at the wrong time? Well, thank you so much, Bill, for another wonderful episode. These always blow my mind as well. So we hope, dear listeners, you have learned something new and are able to integrate this or use this as another data point in your perspectives and your collection of data as you move through the world. So we hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and thank you for joining us.
See you next time.